when I came up here in 1972. I just got involved in the restoration of our rolling stock, establishing the museum. I change around my role a bit because I'm part of the archives group. I certainly do research and write articles, and I'll continue to do that. Every week I find out something about railway history that I didn't know about, so there's always that to look forward to.
I've worked here for probably 15 plus years as a volunteer, purely volunteer, a couple of days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And because I have an interest in railways, and particularly steam, and been very occupied doing restoration work for that time. As well as locomotives, worked on carriage, rolling stock, and anything else that might come up from time to time within the society.
The years have gone by so fast, I could hardly believe it's 14 years now. But it is a good experience. There's always something new in restoration. Some trains are 90 years old, 100, 120. In the beginning it was like I was just a painter. I was actually, they were looking for somebody, a handyman, to paint. So when I came here, I thought I was going to paint. But at the end of the day, I ended up doing more woodwork, repairing work, you know, and re-varnishing stuff. It was very interesting, and it just kept me going for all this amount of years.
Railways played a big part in West Australia's part, establishing all the country centres, country towns, and getting the farm produce back from way out in the bush for a long way away, back to the city, back to the harbour, back to the use. And the railways played a very important part in doing that. I'm working on a narrow gauge locomotive, steam locomotive, that used to work on a gold mine in Kalgoorlie, Lakeview and Star, which is a mine up in Kalgoorlie. And that's the locomotive there behind you. And we're busy restoring that. However, we are arranging so that we can get the wheels to move. We've rigged up an electric motor underneath the locomotive. And when it is finally out on display, the wheels will rotate with an electric motor. But that is in the future when we finally get it finished and moved over to the museum itself. So it's a long-term thing.
Originally came up here to work on carriages and locomotives, and really in those early days it was the development of the site from a big sandy block with a few big pine trees to develop it into a safe environment for the public and to appropriately display our railway heritage. The oldest locomotive we have is Katie, which is just behind me. She was engine number 1 on the Eastern Railway from Fremantle to Guildford, and she was purchased by the government to operate the first passenger trains on the Fremantle to Guildford Railway in 1881. Being a railway historian, I relate them to things that have happened in the history of those locomotives or carriages, and you know, when you can personalise an item and it becomes, you know, less of a 100 tonnes of steel or an old carriage, it takes on a whole new dimension, and you can you know, imagine that vehicle involved in some role that it had 100 years ago or whatever. You know, showcasing our history and talking to people about trains, because one thing people love to talk about is trains, and it's a great thing to be involved with.
Well, trains is always fascinating, as you know. As a child, you would stand and watch the trains go by and just wonder how it worked, you know. Here today, well, we're restoring them. We've done quite a good job, I reckon. If you've been in a museum, you'll see there's one award-winning train. When we finished it, myself, I could admire it and say, what a good piece of work, you know. There's something that's going to be standing there for many, many years after we've gone. That will be remembered as our work, you know. The volunteers have worked on it, yep.
Yeah, it's very important to keep some of these things, just because it's where we've come from, and you know, who knows very little about their great grandfather's role in the railway, and you know, you're able to open up something that they are unfamiliar with, and you know, it's very crucial to some aspect of their research, and so it's very rewarding to help people to find out that kind of information.
I think also I'm doing something in general use to the society in general, not in a very big-headed way, but just to say that we are restoring some of our heritage, some of our history, in whatever minor way we can do. And so I like doing it from that point of view as well. And on top of that, I do like to see this rolling stock or the locomotive or anything else of that nature actually working, if that's possible. And we have worked at that in the past, how the locomotives working at certain times. So that's what I find the satisfaction of, getting something, putting it together, restoring it and getting it to run.
If a person has the strength and the ability, it's good to volunteer. It's a good feeling. It means you are giving back something for nothing. You're giving back to the community in case like this. And like I said, we promote one another in good feeling and good spirit. There's no discrimination here. Everybody's just the same, and we're happy mob, working it all together.